This is Valley Stories. Welcome to Grandmother and the Goat. Most of my life, when I was growing up, and I lived on a farm, and it was, it had been there a long time. The house, I think, was built in the 1850s. Well, I know it was. But there was the house, and then there was an L, as they called it, on the back of the house, and it had the roof that went up. And then beyond that were sheds, and on the end was a big barn. And that was out that way. Now, there was the road here, and cars driving on it. Those cars had tires, and by the way, I'm a pretty terrible drawer. And of course it had a windshield, and there would be people in the cars when they went by, or at least a driver. And then across the road, my grandmother lived in a tiny house. I think today it would be called a cottage, so that we could all, I guess, feel better about it. Now, because my grandmother lived very close, my grandmother here, and she was usually pretty happy, except that sometimes when she wasn't feeling well physically, but, she was generally smiling, singing, laughing. And then here's me down here, and I was generally pretty happy. I had a lot of fields and woods to roam, and I could play in the barns and the shed. So that was my youth. Now I'll just finish drawing myself so you won't think that I was just a head. Well, my grandmother she had just a tiny cottage, so she kept her goats and her chickens at our house. The goats she kept in one of the sheds, and the chickens were actually in a separate building, which we called the hen house. I don't know why we called it that. I don't know, maybe that's all that it ever was. But anyway, she this is not going to be a very good goat, I can tell that. But anyway, she had goats. They have a nose and an eye. Now, she would bring her goats out, and she didn't have too many. Oops. She would bring her goats out. She didn't have too many goats. And she would chain them to a tree. She had a chain that went around the tree, and she had a chain on the goat. Actually, I should draw the chain like that, because it was slack in it. Well, there was slack in it for a while at any rate. But anyway, she would bring the goat out, chain it to the tree, and it would eat the grass, like say in the instance I'm telling you, on the front lawn of our, I shouldn't do that, front lawn of our old house there. Well, you can probably figure out, well, maybe you don't know that much about goats, but of course, what that goat did, it took its chain and it just went around and around the tree, and being a goat, it always went in one direction. Well, what happened was the goat fell down. There's the goat, and we're looking at its back. Of course, the chain was attached around its neck, and at this time the chain was tight around the tree. So the goat was down there on the ground, and it wasn't breathing. So my grandmother came out. She saw what happened, and she realized that the goat could very well die. And she didn't want her goat to die, because not only did they provide milk, but also, too, she really did like the goats. So anyway, my grandmother got down on the ground and gave the goat artificial respiration through its nose. Well, in almost no time at all, the goat jumped up, it stood up, and it just continued grazing as if nothing had happened. It was fine. So my grandmother saved the goat. And of course, she, as you can imagine, she was a little shocked and a little shaky, but all in all, she was more happy than even she usually was. And of course, I was pretty young, so I didn't really understand exactly what happened, but, you know, I liked the goats. I really liked the goats, too. And I certainly didn't, you know, want one of them to die, because, of course, I might have thought, well, if it dies, she'll just get another one. But my grandmother was very poor, and she couldn't have afforded to get another one. But anyway, I was very happy, too, because she was happy. So that's the story of grandmother and the goat. The end. I hope you have a blessed day. Thank you for watching. You can like, comment, and subscribe below. Bye-bye.